and welcome to Down to Art. I'm your host, Kristy Gordon, and today I'm talking with Sydney Black, who is the co-founder of the Nelson International Mural Festival. So welcome, Sydney. It's so good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and Sydney is a creator, performer, facilitator, and executive director of the Nelson District Arts Council. And as I mentioned, she's the co-founder of the Nelson International Mural Festival. So I am so interested to hear more about the other side of the process on murals. Like I know I work with some artists in my art mentoring program who are really interested in getting into murals, making their own designs, pitching them, but I just love the idea of talking to someone who's on the other side, who's kind of organizing it and, helping with the decision making of which murals get, made and things like that. So, but first off, when did the Nelson International Mural Festival start in Nelson?
So we started in 2018. In 2017, I believe, the Vancouver International Mural Festival kicked off, potentially 2016. And I was kind of checking out what they were doing and was really interested. But it was so big and they had so much money. There was a lot of developer money going into their project at that point. And so they were dealing with over $1 million budget. And I really was wondering about how we could scale that to a community of 10,000 and see what that would look like. And so my goal the first year was maybe we'll try to do a fifth of what Vancouver Mural Festival does, and we ended up doing, I think, 7 murals that first year with artists from all over the world. And it was a really, really awesome, tiny little seedling of a first year, but it was really, really exciting. And we've just kind of grown and grown and grown. And so I think the first year we had probably 80 applicants. And this year we just closed our applications on Friday and we had over 620 applicants.
Wow.
So it's really, really expanded quite a lot.
Oh, that's amazing. I love walking around Nelson. I lived in Nelson. I grew up in Nelson, but I moved back there for a few years. That's when I met you. So good to have met you. After having lived in Brooklyn, and I was so, touched to see all these amazing murals all over Nelson. It reminded me of Brooklyn, and it's just livens up Nelson. Livens up. I'm not sure if that's a word, but it's so beautiful and they're so inspiring. Yeah, and so could you tell us a little bit about what the application process looks like when people are submitting their ideas?
Totally. So we really want artists to have to put as little effort into the application process as possible because, again, we want to make sure that people are being paid appropriately at all times. So we don't ever ask for any designs in advance or anything like that. We really don't believe that that's a very ethical process. So we really avoid that. We also avoid any sort of themes or parameters. We try to make sure that, the artists have the opportunity to be as creatively indulgent as they would like to be, without things, being racist or overtly having religious symbols or things like that. There's some parameters that we have to abide by through the City of Nelson's mural policy. But yeah, so we really creative control is a really big thing for us. So when artists apply, they usually supply us with an artist Instagram or website. It's really, really important for artists to have a specific artist Instagram where they only put up their art and it's not their awesome, beautiful selfies of them with their kids or other people's art. I find that that happens a lot. And so that's a super hot tip for people that are applying to have something that's very dedicated to your own practice and showing things that are relevant and indicative of your current practice as well, because sometimes people will make an Instagram specifically for their applications and they'll load it up with a bunch of their previous work and maybe their practice has changed since they they started initially. And so so just current up-to-date work is really important for us to be able to see. And then we just ask for if they have large scale experience. That's key in our process. We don't have the capacity, unfortunately, to train people on how to create murals. I know that Vancouver Mural Festival has an amazing program where you can be an emerging artist, I believe, and still be selected if you haven't done a mural before. But all of our applicants have had previous large-scale experience. Doesn't necessarily have to be a wall, can be a huge canvas, but again, just around ordering and those kinds of logistics. We don't have just the capacity to provide that that extra knowledge. And then just previous design skills and composition we're looking at. So again, like quality of previous work, what that looks like, and artistic merit of their portfolios. So there's a 5-person arm's length jury that comes together and they review the applications. So there's a curator on there, someone who represents kind of the Nelson downtown business crew. We'd usually try to have it be like a millennial business owner or like a younger business owner. Totally love those guys. I'm clinging to my millennialness by like a couple years.
Yeah, totally. Me too.
Like, don't take it from me. And then we have a representative from the city of Nelson. Always, we have a cultural development officer in our community. We're really, really fortunate to be a small community whose city is supporting that, and so she sits on it every year. And then we also have a large scale artist who's created a mural before, generally someone who's worked with us before, and then a curator. So that's kind of what our crew of jurors look like. And then people just send in their stuff and we go through it. It takes a couple months to kind of sort things out. And then we have a really long hiring process because we have really our funding is like very like some comes from here and some comes from there. And so we have to wait a lot of time for the funding to come in. So usually the funding begins coming in like March. We can kind of start to hire people and plan. And then the last money that we get sometimes doesn't come in until July. So we hire our final muralists in, late June, early July, and then wrap it up for the year.
Interesting. So basically you're kind of looking at people's Instagrams and websites. Do they submit a proposal? Do they and they don't do a design? You're kind of just looking at their work, which is hopefully really nicely presented on their website or on their Instagram account. And that's basically.
Yeah, it's
just anything else?
It's the body of their existing work. And then once they're hired, we pay them a design fee to create a design. And then that design has to go through all of the process steps. So it depends. If it's a private building owner, then it has to be approved by the private building owner. Then it has to be approved by the jury. Then it has to be approved by the city of Nelson. So there's all sorts of different steps that I run through after it's all good to go. And then
that's really interesting too. So at that stage, would there be like a written proposal and like a little MIDI painting basically of what the large thing would look like?
Yeah. So we send out the wall images, and then generally people usually, and what's easiest for people to see in their minds is they're doing a lot of like digital, they just superimpose what they'd like to do on top of a picture of the existing wall, and then everyone can kind of get their head around that. But we need just like for like color approval and those kinds of things, we need that to all be fairly specific. And then the artist also provides a really brief write-up on what the piece symbolizes, what it means to them, what it would mean potentially to the community, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I imagine like that written, even though it's short, that written component is like really difficult for people to write. But really important for them to write. I think that might be like a really valuable thing to touch on if you can think of. I don't know. I mean, I know you have a broad range of murals, but is there any tips you can give for that? I mean, I know you mentioned obviously not to include obviously any problematic subject matter, but like other subject matter type of
really what I find is just because the artists are already selected off of what they're already doing in their process, so not changing, or if you are changing what you're doing, letting the festival know, like if you've always been an artist who, does whatever, photorealism portraits, and you've decided that you're going to go into, I don't know, lettering and geometrics, then it's really important for us to kind of know where you're at in your like career trajectory. And there's an opportunity to kind of explain that in the application where you're at. But I just think really just being true to yourself as an artist, and if you're wanting to like push those boundaries, because once you have we've already won. You've already have been selected by the time you're doing your design and you're doing that write-up. Yeah. And really for us, like the write-up is what we use forevermore. It's what we use in all of our social media stuff. It's what we use in our like, we have like a map that a walking tour app that we're developing right now. And so, all of that stuff is all ingrained in there. And so some artists choose to just provide one sentence, some choose to do like full paragraphs, but I think being able to like, speak to what it means to you as an artist is it's an amazing gift for you to give to us as the viewers as well, so that we can understand, those perspectives and pinpoints. And like in Nelson is a very, as we both know, Nelson's a very Caucasian. It's a very white community. So we're 89% white in this community, as per the Stats Can numbers from 2016. And so it's really important for us to make sure that we are supporting the stories of other individuals and people outside of that vast majority in our community, so that, we can also increase people's awareness. Like it just helps everyone culturally to understand and see these different forms of art that they wouldn't normally see, because I find in our process there is a lot of like, we like photorealism pictures of mountains, or it's a very specific type of art. And so so that's where kind of the curatorial aspect comes in a little bit, because we provide juried lists to building owners to select from, so they feel like they have a little bit of control over what's happening on their building. So they pick styles that they're interested in, and then we show the building owners the top ranked artists in those genres that they like. So that's kind of how our, like, it's a very yes, there's a lot of stuff going on. So each artist can self-determine when they're applying. They choose 3 different genres that they feel that their art is in, and then the building owners also pick 3 genres. And so then we provide the top 2 artists, I believe, from each genre that the building owner picked, and then we pick 2 other artists that are outside of what they picked, but who were also ranked at the very top by the jury, so that people can also see things that they didn't even realize that they wanted to see, or that they, it kind of gives that option, to kind of change things, because, you don't even know what you like until you see it, really.
Yeah, totally. So then, so when you're choosing the final artist, it's like the jury, but is it also kind of all like the person who owns the wall who's also kind of choosing, like, is that part of the actual selection process of which artists get chosen if they choose that artist for the wall? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So it's very complex. So we have 2 different types of buildings in our community that we paint on. So we either paint on public buildings, which are owned by the city or the province, or we paint on private buildings. So with our public buildings, we pick the top rated artists by the jury. So it's the top overall artist, and we usually have 2 or 3 public walls that we can work on every year. And so the top overall artist usually gets selected to come and paint on that wall, and then the top local artist also gets selected to come and paint on a public wall, so that we can make sure that we also have local representation. And then the building owners is where we do that interesting shimmy, where it's like, okay, what are your top 3 styles, and then we match them. And so then they see something broader than what they initially thought they wanted to see, but then we're also able to slide in some other styles and some and it happens a lot. Like, people will select those other styles that they didn't even know that they were interested in seeing. So it's been really, really cool to see it grow, and it's been just so beautiful to help to share those stories. And so again, back full circle. So that's why those write-ups are super important, is because we want to understand and have people understand where you are coming from as an artist, what your perspective is, and what your root point is, and so I think that's just something wonderful that you can share.
I like that it's kind of like an extension of the artist's like current practice, and like writing an artist statement is always like hard for an artist, but I think so important because it gives us clarity about what we're actually exploring in our art, and it's good to have some like intentionality behind that.
Plus,
Well,
you're artists. You can say like anything. You could be like, I am rooting my practice deeply in the breathing, the essence of nature, and we would be like, awesome, you're an artist. That's so cool.
Yeah, you're the second person who said that to me recently. The other one was Marina Granger, who's going to be on the podcast really soon, and she's an art historian and an amazing art professional. But she was saying, like, as an art historian, the thing for us to realize as artists is that, like, whatever we write in our artist statement is true. It's like, well, that's comforting because sometimes I have no idea if I'm writing the right thing in my artist statement.
And it's all you, exactly. We are just with you in that, you know. And so that's a really wonderful, less pressuring way to think about it, I think, for sure.
Totally. And it just sounds like you've got a really nice, like, streamlined approach. So I like that element of, like, bringing in the business owners and having them, you know, choose the artist, but also giving them, like, more options than they might have thought. Exposing them to more art forms than they might have
totally
thought of. Yeah.
And I think with that, a lot of it was getting that initial buy-in as well, because we are like a small rural community, you know, we're very isolated, you know, like people don't, like, change is really hard, you know, like I remember like when Subway moved down the street, it was a really big deal, you know, those kinds of things.
Totally.
And so
I remember that.
And so exactly. And so it was like a really great, it's a great way, totally, where we can bring people into the practice as well. And, you know, ideally someday we have enough, like our relationships are solid enough and there's enough trust in the community that we, you know, are given the opportunity to fully curate whatever we'd like to, or, you know, or to fully have the jury select those pieces. But I think that it's a really good starting point where we're, you know, and that's what this has all been about. You know, we're going into year 5 and it's just, you know, every year we start to, like, it's like we're becoming like adult festival. We're like a big girl festival. You know, so it felt, you know, like we're getting more. We're going to be working with Selkirk College on a course, you know, and we're starting to well, and for their summer. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this, but as a part of their summer upgrading offerings, we're going to be working on an arts course with them and bringing their students into kind of the mural process and working with indigenous artists that we work with as well. So there's some really cool overlap and buy-in from the community, and we've also started this little mural kind of group where there's 7 little mural festivals throughout BC and Alberta, and so we've made kind of like every 2 months we hang out and we have a Zoom call all together and we kind of talk about, you know, the different issues that we've come up against and, you know, like what you wish you had known when you were starting. And we've been doing a lot of like knowledge sharing and things like that. And that's been really awesome because, you know, we were the first of those guys to start, or that crew to start. And so we've been really, you know, supporting those humans as well and trying to help them get their stuff started. And so there's definitely a cool little niche of cool, like, art focused mural festivals that are happening because, you know, there's always like Chemainus, which is wonderful and is full of historical murals, and, you know, and that has its place for sure. And I think when a lot of people think of, you know, rural murals, they think of that, you know, community, you know, like pictures of white guys on horses and things like that. And so I think that that this is like a really interesting way that these little tiny communities are like bringing in very high quality fine artists who are creating now. So
that's a good point. It's a different flavor of mural. Like, I like these murals better. They're really vibrant, like really amazing, really like artistically amazing to me. I don't know, just all the different types of styles. And I was wondering, have you noticed anything about what works well design wise? That might be a little bit like outside of the realm of you know, your specific like focus, but I can imagine like some simplicity and things like that.
I think it's just his timing. Like if you are it's really interesting to see. It just depends on how you work, you know, like some spray artists are so detailed and they throw up pieces in like 2 days. And I don't know if that's because like historically they've been like painting really fast on train cars and they have to get it done before the police come or whatever. But like there's like Bacon was here this summer and he's a very well-known kind of like a godfather of Canadian graffiti artist. And so he came and painted for us and he was like, so fast, he threw up his piece that he had proposed in like a day and a half. We had him booked for 10 days to be there, and then he was like, I want to do one on the other side of the building. So it's just, I think that it's totally just doing what you feel confident that you can get done in the amount of time that you have elapsed. Because I think a lot of times, like especially if you don't have a huge amount of experience, but you have some experience, you know, like you could get thrown up on a massive wall, and if your stuff is super detailed, you know, you feel the pressure of the cloth. It's funny because I'm like a performance artist is my artistic practice, and
that's so cool.
I call it like getting on the roller coaster when you have to go on stage. So you like go through your rehearsal process and then you like are standing backstage and you have to get onto the roller coaster because the roller coaster is not like waiting. And so you get on it and you are like, I don't want to be on this thing anymore. Get me off the roller coaster. But you're like ticking up that first hill and you don't have the option and you have to go on stage and you did this to yourself and this is supposed to be fun. And then you like just go, right? And so I didn't realize though how similar the visual artist's practice was to that, because I find like almost every time an artist is rolled into town, they're exactly like me right before I go on stage. They don't want to talk to anyone. They don't want to like, they're very focused. It's like they have agreed to get on the roller coaster and now they're ticking up the hill and they're like, oh no, I don't like, what did I say? Why did I say I was going to do this? But then just to have your process be so public as well, right? The rehearsal process of it is all just so like, is so private, and you as visual artists in the specific mural space, like you are exposing everything, every little piece of you know, as it goes, and people like don't understand the process as well, so they're like, oh, I don't realize that you aren't done until you're done, you know, like the painting like doesn't happen until the last day, you know, for like the final wrap up, right? And so yeah, there's definitely been times over the years where I've walked by and been like, oh dear, but then it's like then it never ends up like that ever. And then I'm always like, oh, you're so silly. Could you imagine if someone came into your rehearsal process on day 2 and saw you dancing or like trying to learn your dances or sing your songs, and you know they were witnessing that, like how would they would also say, oh dear, like what is so it's
especially in Nelson though, it's like a small community, like everyone you've ever known will probably walk by you on that day too. Like,
oh yeah,
that is like an added challenge for sure.
And love to talk about it too, right? We've actually had to put up signage in the last little while, especially with COVID over the last couple of years, just being like, please, you know, like, let's keep our artists safe, let's stay away, because people are super friendly, but also like 6 feet.
Yeah, totally. And I do have to do some painting today. I can't just
talk all day long. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why the lifts are helpful, because you can be like, okay, I'm going up, and then no one can get you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've been doing some murals around Brooklyn, and we started using a scissor lift for the first time. I was very nervous about it, but it was actually okay.
Oh, and I'm nervous too. Our mural coordinator, Brian, he like, I came around and he's like moving the lift and I'm like, it's beeping! What are you doing? It's beeping! And he's like, I'm just going to do this when you're not here anymore, you know? Like he's just like, leave me alone! I'm like, safety! So,
I totally like that too.
That is a special skill.
Every time it moves.
Oh yeah, totally. All the time. But then there's the scary beep that happens too. But that was something
luckily I haven't heard that beep. I would freak out.
Yes, exactly. When it's making the unstable beep and there's only 3 wheels, you're like, stop it.
Yeah, I would freak.
But that is definitely something that is helpful, like if you're looking at doing larger scale stuff, having that training, so making sure that you have like your scissor lift ticket before you go to a festival. Like
I got that through the company that I'm working with, but how would someone who's an individual do that, or do you know, like, because I guess they would do that themselves, like it's not.
So we have like a Canadian training like certification website that we use that does it. And so they have fall arrest and elevated platforms, which are two super important courses for you to have, even if you're like, you want them, even if you're just going to be scaffolding on a piece. So so that's super important, and we have to have people have that if they get hired, and we pay for it when we hire people.
Cool.
And then another thing that we've just started doing is fit testing respirators. So if you use spray paint at all in your practice, we now are required by WorkSafe BC to have your respirator, which has to be new, fit tested to your face. And so it's this last year was the first year, so it has to be a fully complete seal around your entire mouth and chin, and you can't have any facial hair. And so last year we ended up having to tell like all of these gentlemen that they had to shave their beard. And it was really, I felt really bad. I didn't realize how like attached, I don't have facial hair, so I didn't realize that it was like an attachment thing, and I was asking people to do quite a lot. But but that's kind of a new thing this year, is that that you have to have a cleanly shaven face and a fitting respirator if you're a spray paint artist, and we have to have a guy check it essentially, or else we don't have WorkSafe certification. So
wow, that's good to know. So I have bought myself like one of these little, is it the respirator that you mean, the one that's like a face mask with the two cartridges on
it? Absolutely. And so
I bought one of those for myself, but actually not everyone's using it when we're spray painting. But actually, now that you mention it, I think I need to tighten it, like it's a little
and change your caps to your filters, right? Like that's something that people don't think about at all. And so the guys, like the rule guys, say you're supposed to change your filters every day. If you're heavily spray painting, totally. But that's not. Yeah, exactly. That's so funny. Exactly. That's what we had a couple artists come in, and he was like, "So when did you last change your filters on these?" And the one artist was like, "What?" And he was like,
I don't know how to do it. But
I've never done this before, and I've been using this mask for 2 years or whatever, and so. So I think that it's just really important to keep people safe and for your health, right? And so this is like long-term stuff that is pretty serious that can happen, and we want to protect people's lungs. And that's like my big thing always, is like personal and emotional safety and well-being. And that's like a huge thing for us through the whole festival, is just making sure that people feel, physically safe, but also like fully supported as well. So
it sounds like you're doing a really good job of that with each step, like the whole design of the application process, and then the helping people get certification or whatever, paying for it, for the scissor lift, and then guidance around mask use. That's all like super important. Speaking of like long term, how archival, like how do you deal with like I don't know how archival the murals are, how long are they expected to last, and things like that?
Totally. So we have a 10-year contract with all of the building owners and the city as well, so with the public building owners as well. So that's our kind of our threshold, so 10 years. And then we have, our agreement says that we will either leave the mural as it was, or they can recontract a new mural, so provide more funding, and then we do another mural, or we will return the wall to its original state, which most of these walls were just like in really thrashy, poor shape anyway. So like we've actually totally. And so we've been we put away maintenance money every year, but we've kind of amassed enough money that if we have to, it would be like the saddest day in the history of the world, but we could like hire a contractor to like gray spray paint over everything after a decade, but I highly doubt that will happen. And so, I guess we're halfway to that. So I'll start thinking about that in like 3 years, probably, about how we're going to deal with that situation.
Probably nobody will choose that, but And so you mentioned some of the artists are using spray paint. I know we're using a little spray paint and then like Liquitex, just like house paint, or not Liquitex, latex, I mean. And I know of some mural artists that use oils. I can't imagine that's so smelly. Like they're using smelly oils. I paint in oils for my painting.
Oh no, we haven't done
non-toxic process.
And no one's done any oil stuff here, but definitely we have a sweet hookup from Home Hardware in town, and they help us out with our house paint, so we get like a really great discount from them. And so we use just regular house paints or or spray. I think we're going to be working with a spray company called Loop, who's a distributor out of Calgary this year. So that's really exciting. It's our first year, again, becoming a big person festival. You know, we finally have a spray sponsor, so that's awesome. And then I'm trying to think. I can't recall what the name of the paint is. Nova Color. So there's a brand of latex called Nova Color, and it's supposed to have like really high ratings for like sun, so that the sun doesn't damage it and things like that. And so that's another brand that we've been using quite a lot. And then this last year, we just have started to put anti-graffiti coating on some of the murals. So
there's such a thing.
Yeah, so it's like a thick clear coat that you can put on. Usually you only have to put it like, 10 feet up and down, because that's as high as people can spray paint. But apparently there's this movement on the Instagram called F Your Mural, and it's like people go and they find prolific artists like Bacon, who came, and they paint over top of their murals, and they post it to this Instagram to kind of seek like a online fame for destroying this work. And so that was the concern that was brought to us this year, and so we were like, we don't want to be a part of that. So we've started using some anti-graffiti coating as well, but it also helps to keep the colors bright as well. So it'll be great to kind of keep those murals going. It's really expensive, but it's but it's really been helpful. So
you put a thick coat on, and say someone does spray paint on top, somehow you use like terps or something, and you just
pressure wash. Pressure washes right off. So it's amazing. You can't stick anything to the wall at all afterwards. Like we've tried to go like put posters up for our openings, and we're like, what? It won't stick. Oh no. So that's it people spray paint over it, and then their spray paint looks like it stayed, and then you can just go and spray it down after.
Oh wow, that's good.
It's super good.
That's interesting. Well, I don't know if I can think of anything else. Can you think of anything else?
I think it's just so much about people being like really true to themselves and their practice in the process, and to apply to like multiple festivals as well. So, like there's a bunch of little festivals going on. So if you're looking at trying to kind of like ease your costs, because a lot of us don't have funding to pay for travel. Like we pay usually around $3,500 for artist fees. It goes up though, and we cover accommodations, and we also in non-COVID years have had restaurant sponsors, so we've been able to feed people, which will happen again hopefully this year. So that is something that we are able to do, but oftentimes flights are a little bit tricky. So I always recommend that artists kind of look at for Kelowna, they look at Squamish Mural Festival, they look at Chilliwack Mural Festival and Vancouver, and kind of see if they can make a little tour out of it, because we've been getting some artists like that. So just keeping your eye out, and it's pretty magical to get to have people come and paint, especially when they're used to painting in such urban environments, to have them come to a place like Nelson, that is this little tiny town just stuck in the middle of the forest, and so it's definitely a different scene kind of that we are able to provide than other places in that respect.
Yeah, it must be like a great trip for people. Like to visit Nelson is like so nice, but it's making the city it just looks so beautiful. It's like visually interesting, like everywhere you look. I'm so glad that you guys are organizing this, and it's just so great to get to pick your brain about this. I know a lot of artists that are going to really enjoy hearing all your thoughts about it. So thank you so much, Sydney.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Christine. If anyone ever wants to reach out to me, they absolutely can. My email address is info@ndac.ca. So if anyone has any questions or is looking for any guidance, I'm always super, super happy to talk and share. It could be an artist or a facilitator or someone who's interested in producing murals. If you are, in the middle of Michigan and you want to do a mural festival, shoot me an email and we can have a conversation about how we've kind of developed things. So, and the more we can do this, the more we can make these spaces beautiful and have our communities connect, outside of galleries. And I think just it's just such a fabulous, wonderful offering. I feel so honored to get to be able to facilitate it.
Aw, I love that. And that's so great that people can reach out to you. I'm sure some people listening to this podcast probably will, actually. Because as you say, it's open, it's international, anyone can submit. And then what's the website where people can find the information as well?
So we're at www.nelsonmuralfest.ca.
Excellent. Well, it's so good to talk to you, Sydney. Thank you so much. And I hope to chat with you again sometime soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I really look forward to the next time we get to catch up.
Me too. Talk to you soon, Sydney.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.